Hi guys, the Zelda Theorist here, back at you with my second YouTube video in the Theory Chat series, which is where I babble at you about theories surrounding the Legend of Zelda series in about 10-15 minutes of a chunk. Sometimes a little more because I tend to talk a lot. Anyway, today I thought I would cover one of the creepiest and easily most frustrating games in the Legend of Zelda series, which would be none other than Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is one of the darker games in the Legend of Zelda franchise. Twilight Princess has been kind of rated as second in one of the darker Zelda games. But anyway, dark game, it even has like some kind of haunted cartridge surrounding it, and a whole little horror story involving the Majora's Mask video game. But I'll do another video on that, another video altogether. So anyway, sit back guys, relax, and have fun looking at the pretty pictures and hearing the melodious tones of my voice. Here we go, kiddies! Okay, you Zelda lovers out there, let's start our theory chat today out with everyone's favorite video game hero, Link. Some theorists have theorized that Link is dead during the events of Majora's Mask, and that Termina represents some form of mental purgatory for the hero of time. I, on the other hand, do not buy into the theory of Link's death. At least not yet. I say not yet because, well, that's another video altogether. The fact of Link not being dead because it's morbid and sad. Link starts out in search of presumably Navi in the Kokiri forest. He then sees Skull Kid after venturing into the Lost Woods in search of Navi, and Skull Kid spooks Epona and knocks Link from Epona's back and steals the Ocarina of Time. Link then follows Skull Kid through the Lost Woods. So my reasoning is, since he's following Skull Kid, who apparently knows his way very well through the Lost Woods considering he lives in them, Link doesn't get lost, so Link's not dead or Stalfos or anything like that. As for his path to Termina, I believe that even though it is a reflective form of Hyrule, that it's not actually a parallel universe of Hyrule, but in fact another country in and of itself. Sure, Link fell into a hole to get there, but hasn't anyone ever told you you could dig a hole to China? Same concept. Okay, so theory number 2 revolves around the first form that you change into, which is the Deku Scrub. So, Skull Kid has decided to give you a new face! Too bad it just happens to be the face of the Deku Butler's dead son. Evidence to prove my theory, I'm going to be kind of brief since this one's pretty glaring. The Deku Butler tells you after you play the chasing game with him that you remind him of his son that left the Deku Palace for quote-unquote parts unknown. The second piece of evidence comes as the credits roll, and you see the Deku Butler dabbing his little Deku Butler eye with a handkerchief, crying at the twisted shell of the Deku Scrub, whose soul is now attached to your mask. Yay you! You get to don the face of a murder victim. Anyway, how could you, Skull Kid? How could you? Oh well. On to theory number 3. Theory number 3 comes from hands down the most creep-tastic character in the game, the Happy Mask Salesman. I mean, really guys, no one smiles or chuckles that much. And he changes moods quicker than a woman with a serious hormone problem. There are tons of theories surrounding the Happy Mask Salesman, everything from him being a god to him being Majora incarnate and using you to get all the masks so he can imbue Majora's powers. Now I'll explain more on that one in a second. But I've got a couple of theories surrounding the Happy Mask Salesman of my own to tackle first. First off, is where does this guy come from? So let's look at the facts. The Happy Mask Salesman can travel between the lands of Hyrule and Termina, so he does know of Termina's existence. All this means to me is that Dude Man knows how to get around. He also says that he goes to great lengths to procure the mask, so he's possibly well versed in magic. As for where he's from, I think quite possibly that he's from the moon. The reason that I think this is because once you're sucked up into the moon, you're sucked up onto this big grassy plain, and there are all these lunar children running around that all bear a striking resemblance to the masked salesman. Not to mention, they ask you if you'll be a masked salesman too, which would mean to me that they're kind of being groomed to be masked salesmen when they grow up. Now for the time that I mentioned earlier in which the Happy Mask Salesman is actually Majora and is masterminding a plan to get all of your non-transformation masks so he can become Majora incarnate. This theory is favored among some of the fans because the Moon Children, before you enter the mini-dungeons with them, ask for masks before and after until you have no masks left except for your transformation masks. Be that as it may, I'm not convinced the Happy Mask Salesman is Majora, because there's a kid wearing Majora's mask that's sitting under the tree. Without going through all the mini dungeons, you can approach the kid and go into the main fight with Majora without having to give up any of your mask. So that kind of blows that theory out of the water for me. My personal opinion on the Happy Mask Salesman is that in Majora's mask, I think he's actually a spirit. I think that maybe Skull Kid unknowingly killed him under the thrall of Majora's mask even before Skull Kid put the mask on. The reason I think this is because in any story you will ever read, any spirit has to have closure before it can cross over into the afterlife, and I don't believe the Happy Mask Salesman could obtain closure until Majora's mask was back in his possession. When the mask is retrieved, he thanks you, vanishes into thin air. So yeah, I say spirit! So right about now, you guys are probably thinking this music sounds really familiar and it's not from Majora's Mask. You're thinking this because you're right, it's not from Majora's Mask. It's actually the Lost Woods theme from Ocarina of Time. So what's it doing in a Majora's Mask video? That's because the fourth theory that I have for you guys is based around Skull Kid. This one's kind of obvious, so I'm not going to waste a chunk of time on this particular theory. The theory that I have for you is that I think that Skull Kid in Majora's Mask is actually the same Skull Kid you teach Saria's song to in Ocarina of Time. Only because he tells Link at the end of the game that Link smells like the fairy boy that taught him that song in the woods. See, I told you guys this part wouldn't take that long. Last but not least is theory number 5, which focuses on the whole reason we have this installment in the Legend of Zelda series in the first place. Majora's Mask itself. Where did it come from? This question has been asked among fans since the release of the Majora's Mask video game. Here's the answer. I don't know. I do know, however, that the theory that seems the most convincing goes a little something like this. As disclosed in the game, Majora's Mask was created by an ancient civilization that, to anyone's knowledge, no longer exists. Probably because it's an ancient civilization. The first thought about the ancient civilization itself is that all fingers must point towards the twilight because of the similarity of Majora's mask and the View Shadow. If you look at both objects mainly around the eyes, you can see the similarities between the eyes. But another theory that's been tossed out there, and the one that I buy into, is that the twilight didn't create it at all. The Dark Interlopers actually must have created Majora's mask, because they were banished to the Twilight Realm because of practicing dark magic. Majora's mask is the epitome of dark magic. I mean, it can possess people, it can make them do things they wouldn't normally do, like bringing the moon down to decimate a town. So, you know. But another thing that I noticed while looking through the credits for Twilight Princess is that in the scene where Prince Rallis is seen sitting on the cliff and staring at the mountainside that he's looking at actually seems to have the semblance of Majora's mask carved into it. But that's another video entirely. Thank you guys so much for joining me for Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask Theory Chat. I had a ball making the video. I hope you guys had fun listening to the video, watching the pictures flash across the screen. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it was a little thought-provoking and you guys can come up with some Zelda theories of your own out there. The next video that I do is going to be a little bit different from the ones that I've done thus far. and I hope you guys enjoyed it just the same. In the meantime, till I get it ready, please feel free to leave me a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. All that I ask is that you don't be a troll. There's always a sweet way to say something sucks. So please be respectful of others' opinions as far as the videos that I post, and my opinions as well as the creators of the theories that I covered today. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please feel free to leave a comment. And now I'm going to roll some credits. Peace out, guys. See you next time.